doesn't it?
All I'm doing right here, yes, exactly. So this is really a 2.5D game. It's a 3D world. But what I want to do here is I want that character to run back and forth. I don't want him to go anywhere else. So I'm really constraining him to some dimensions here. I also don't want him to run outside of the world. That's where you can use things like the math.clamp function. This code will all be available for download. I'll have some extra comments in here. The main thing is here, we're doing all the exact same stuff that we did with our cubes. We move an object, we detect a collision, we increment a score, and we destroy an object. And potentially when we destroy an object, we spawn off a particle system. It's really a really easy process. Everything else is on good graphics, good gameplay, tying that all together and making it something that kind of looks very interesting. So thankfully, the asset store, you can download a lot of cool stuff from there and use it, or hook up with an artist. Really cool ways to do that.
I gotta find me a Matt Newman.
Gotta find you a Matt Newman. Very, very talented fellow. So that is it for the magic of a 3D game. That brings us to the end of our 3D session today, and we're going to have about a 15-minute break this time before we continue on with the next session, and that's going to be building your games for Windows, and we will see you then. Thank you very much.
Sounds good. Thank you, everybody.
Hi everyone, welcome back to developing 2D and 3D games with Unity for Windows. My name's Jason Fox.
I'm David Voiles.
I'm going to introduce myself. I'm new to the group here. I am a technical evangelist for Microsoft as well. I focus on gaming, cloud, client technologies like Windows Phone and Windows Store. I've been doing development for about 13 years after leaving the military, and I've done a lot of stuff. I've done video games. I've done graphics programming, natively, DirectX, OpenGL. I've also done a lot of data visualization and UX design. Dave, you want to reintroduce yourself?
Sure thing. I was on briefly earlier today with Adam Tuliper. I'm also a technical evangelist based out of Philadelphia. My background was in web development and gaming. Previously, I was at Comcast working on their Xbox applications, and now I'm here joining these wonderful folks at Unity and Microsoft to help these projects get off the ground.
Great. So we are in Module 5, building for the Windows platform, using Unity to target Windows Store and Windows Phone. So what we're going to talk about is we're going to cover the stores. So there are two separate stores right now, Windows and Windows Phone. And we're going to talk about exporting your game to each one of these platforms. And then we're going to talk a little bit more about the hardware, what's involved, what kind of hardware you can target. And then we'll talk a little bit about platform-specific features at the end and how to make use of those. So let's delve into the stores. We have a pretty vibrant ecosystem now.
Yep.
We've been working to expand this the past few years since we launched the platforms. We've got over 500,000 apps now across Windows and Windows Phone. We've got, at any given point in time, over 100 million active users. That's a great 250% year-over-year growth from last year. We've got developers joining the platforms in droves. 89% growth year-over-year from last year, over 640,000 now. And we've continued to grow our MO partner billing throughout the world. I mean, globally, different countries in China, Europe, and that's very important with mobile operator billing to attack those markets where instruments for purchasing things are not really readily available.
Yeah, I'm glad you bring that up because a large issue that game developers commonly run into is they only seem to target the countries they're from. And obviously Microsoft, we're here in America. So many developers, I'm sure you see this as well, in your location, they tend to just focus on America. Yep. Like I said, China, Brazil, a lot of third world countries are a huge target for Microsoft at this point, especially with lower powered devices. So as Jason gets deeper into the talk, consider that your game doesn't necessarily have to be the most beautiful or gorgeous thing in the world, but often considering a lot of those low-powered devices that are in many of these emerging markets as well.
Yeah, and talking about these emerging markets and instruments for billing, a lot of these credit cards are not really available to these people.
Right.
And so mobile operator billing is super important for them to be able to make in-app purchases and buying games from the store. So let's talk or go over some real quick games that are out using Unity on our platforms. Driftmania, we've got some pretty large, big IPs who have used Unity on our platform. Temple Run, that Frozen Freefall.
Yep.
My wife plays that like every day. Anyways, just to give you an idea of what the capabilities are on our platform, there's some great games out there already. Thousands of games.
Yeah, a lot of
Built with
diversity there.
Unity.
And
Yeah.
easy for students or even professionals and AAAs to get on board at this point as well.
Yep. So let's try to understand the way that the app stores are broken down here. So we do have two stores right now.
Yes.
We've got the Windows Store, and this applies to devices running Windows 8, Windows 8.1. That includes the Windows RT devices like
Right.
the Surface RT tablet and the Nokia 25, is it 2250 or 2520? Whatever, the Nokia RT tablet. It also delves into the tablets, all-in-ones, desktops, laptops that are running Windows 8 and Windows 8.1.
Okay, so we got a pretty broad spectrum there then, right?
Yeah, pretty much any PC or tablet running Windows 8
Yeah.
and above.
Yeah, it's really
Right.
anything from...
That's what the Windows Store, that's how you're going to get your apps onto those platforms.
Yeah, and definitely something to consider when you're starting to put a lot of this together, whether you're going to have touch controls, game padding controls, because, like I said, people may be playing on a flight, on a tablet, or they may be at home in a huge desktop with a standalone GPU inside there. So really think about this as you're starting to put some of your products together too.
Yep. Now, the other store is the Windows Phone Store. You know, this is going to have a slightly different reach. It's targeting devices like the Nokia Lumia line, now Microsoft. HTC, they just launched their great flagship phone, the HTC One M8.
Yep.
Huawei,
Yeah, I mean, I use a 1520.
Samsung, right? These are all these
1520.
emerging market phones that
Yeah.
we don't necessarily see here in the United States. Operating system-wise, Windows Phone 8, Windows Phone 8.1. The Windows Phone 8.1 is the new operating system update that's rolling out globally. I think the last I saw, about 25% is there.
Yes.
And the operators continue to push that out over the next few months. Like, what do you think, maybe by the end of the year? We should see a large majority of the market on
Yeah,
Windows
probably more than
8.1.
50% at that point.
Yeah.
And how about the revenue share? Why don't you discuss that
So
first?
revenue share, we have a 70-30 split, which is standard across any app store that you deal with. So 70% to the developer, 30% to the store for platform fees, publishing fees, and what have you.
Yeah, not a bad cut at all, especially when you consider the number of developers you now have access to.
So let's talk about the revenue models and which ones we support on our platform. Advertising, of course. We've got a multitude of advertising platforms available, which we'll cover in just a minute.
Yep.
In-app purchases are huge. While I'm going through these, if you'll pay attention to the bar chart on the right-hand side of revenue source, you can see the trends and where we're at right now. And this data is fairly recent, as of July of this year. In-app purchases are trending upwards in both markets.
Yeah, absolutely.
So phone, much more so now, but Windows Store is also trending upward. And the paid model, the old paid model, is trending downwards.
Yeah, which is definitely like a stark contrast for what something like you and I may have grown up with, right?
Yeah.
Sure, as
Yeah,
a child.
exactly.
Right, we grew up going to the physical brick and mortar stores, buying a game for $50 and $60, and you expect that was going to be the end of it all. But now you see it's actually going quite the opposite direction.
We're in the 26% at the bottom of that bar chart there.
Yeah, so we're kind of
But
like the...
yeah, I would
folks then.
personally would much rather buy a game, but the market is trending towards in-app purchases, and these are consumables, durable goods, right?
Yep. Even like a currency exchange.
Yeah, so things like what is it, the Frozen Freefall? If you fail, you can buy a new turn in the game.
Right.
Right. In-app purchases like this, that this new generation of mobile user is keen on buying to continue playing and enjoying a game.
A lot of psychology behind that too. So it may befit the developer to get into understanding the consumer's mindset and what would make them want to, in fact, go after an in-app purchase, like kind of dangling that carrot in front of them.
Yeah, I mean, again, we're not going to delve into the deep into it in this session, but there's a lot of research, a lot of information available on the internet about in-app purchases and how to model it correctly. In fact, Tobiah and I are going to be doing a talk tomorrow.
Absolutely.
On this exact thing, monetization, how to do it the right way to make money. The other model is paid, right? This is the classic model. I go in, I purchase the game, I download it. We have different price tiers, 99 cents the minimum on both platforms. We have $1.29, $1.49, and it just kind of bumps up and up and up in increments like that. And I think the maximum maybe $999.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, not bad deal at all.
If you want to do that.
Full application suite or something like that.
And one thing I do want to note is if you do choose the paid model for your game, please leverage the trial system that's a part of our store. And it's really, really easy to set up from the developer portal. You can set up time trials. So I can say that my game's trial is going to expire in 1 day. It's going to expire in 3 days.
Right.
It's up to you to decide what works for you. My guidance on that's usually if they can finish your game in less than a day, don't give them a 1 day full trial. Give them a trial with some limited functionality. Maybe they get the first 2 levels of the game, right? And then they need to purchase it. So that's another aspect of it that you need to consider. Trials do afford you a lot more upfront downloads.
Yeah.
So, people download your game, play it, decide if they want to purchase it, as opposed to seeing, some big hefty price tag on the front of it. And some of us may not think 99 cents is a hefty price tag, but a lot of people do. And there's no trial, they won't even bother to download and take a look at your game.
Exactly. And something I wanted to point out about the in-app purchases really quick. Security is obviously always a big concern, and how do we deal with this monetization, how people are getting paid? Well, Unity developers on Microsoft platform always have the option of having Microsoft handle that currency exchange. So people can have in-app purchases, it then goes through Microsoft's system, and then at the end of the month or billing period, that money and those funds are then distributed back to you as the developer. So you don't have to worry about handling the money. The consumer doesn't have to worry about the security behind it because it's all handled by the same model that they use to actually purchase the game in the first place.
Yep. And then, of course, the other model is free, right? If you're making your game and you don't feel like you need to monetize it, it's maybe a hobby. Of course, you can always release it to the store for free and get feedback. In fact, I know some developers that do this as a kind of a beta testing. Yeah. For a game concept. They'll just release a free version and they say, hey, does this work or not? If it does, then they take that concept and they refine it into a monetized product later on.
So now we have free down. Why don't we discuss a bit about advertising and additional ways to make revenue?
So advertising, we have support from several platforms, right? We've got some pretty major ones on here. I think mobile-wise, AdMob is a pretty big one. The Microsoft ads. Ad Duplex is a really cool one. It's an ad exchange platform that's specific to Windows Phone.
Okay.
And what they do there is they exchange advertising between apps, and you can also purchase ads for your apps on that.
Ah, perfect.
So.
And if there is anything that you notice is missing here that you'd like to see on the platform, please, we implore you to reach out to the tech evangelists so we can then go back to the product groups and work on getting these built into your apps.
Plugin-wise, you guys have probably heard about the Prime 31 plugins already. If not, they are free to download. Prime 31 is one of the major providers of Unity plugins. We made a deal with them earlier this year to make all of the Windows platform plugins free. And that's including the Microsoft ads, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes.
Just not the AdMob.
Right.
But the platform plugins, interacting with the store, live tiles, and then Microsoft ads.
Yeah, and Azure as well. Adam and I will be giving a talk on Prime 31, how to integrate their Azure plugin tomorrow at about 2 o'clock. So be sure to come back for that as well.
And then one more thing I wanted to mention on this slide is Ad Rotator. Is a cool little device that lets you plug in all these different ad platforms, and you can feed it some parameters. It'll actually cycle through different ad providers in the same space in your application, in the same control, or in your game. So you can actually start sourcing out for different ad platforms for better fill rates, better click-through pricing, right? That stuff, and it kind of maximizes your impressions. And I'm sure that I think Tobiah is going to cover this more in depth tomorrow. But
yeah,
Let's see. What's on that?
So why don't you talk a bit about in-app purchases and best practices about that without getting too deep, because like you said, we'll leave Tobias to do that tomorrow.
So I guess we could talk about the support on the platform for in-app purchasing.
Consumables, durable items, things of that nature.
I mean, it's all managed through our developer portal. You sign in, you go submit your application, your game. You have the opportunity to set up your merchandising for your game, and you can choose these products like these consumable items. These are the items that users can purchase over and over again repeatedly. So it'd be like in-game currency, more lives, health potions, what have you. And then the long-term durable stuff would be something like unlocking a new level in the game going forward. And you can set that to expire. So it'd be almost like maybe you could do a subscription with it.
Yep.
And you have anything to add to that? Or?
So Atlee Hunter, who's a prominent Windows Phone and Windows 8 developer, he has several hundred apps on the platform. He actually gave a really good talk about this at Philadelphia Code Camp several months ago. And I'm sure he has another good blog post about it. Again, it's Atlee Hunter. And he spoke in depth about consumables, the psychology behind it, and best practices, and how, despite not having an incredibly large user base for one of his games, he still managed to make a very good living off of it, just through repeat engagements, fair practices, and really intelligent ways of getting consumers to take advantage of consumables in a way that feels fair to both sides.
Great. All right. Let's, again, here's the in-app purchases. I just wanted to mention also that you could use any third-party commerce system that you want. It doesn't have to be the Microsoft Developer Portal commerce system. So if you're using some kind of game service backend to provide your in-app purchases, you can do that. That's certainly we're capable of supporting.
Yep.
And one other important note, if you do have a trial version of your application, it does not support in-app purchases. So it would have to be a full-blown either free download or a purchased or paid version of your game.
Okay. So then we have the two stores. How do we kind of merge or combine our products in both stores?
That's what we're going to talk about right now. We did introduce this new concept back, I believe we announced it at Build this year, of combining your games. So you can take your game in Windows Phone and you can take your game in the Windows Store.
Okay.
And you can link them together into a single purchase. And so that's very attractive to people who leverage both platforms.
Yeah.
Right? So we all, Windows Phone, you've got a Windows tablet or PC at home. And I've got an example here of Halo Spartan Assault. That's something, a first-party game that Microsoft put out. If I purchase it on Windows Store for $4.99, I also get to download that on Windows Phone.
Right, without any additional cost.
Without any additional payments or cost.
Yep.
So it's a great experience for the consumer to be able to do that. You can certainly factor that into your pricing, I think, right? I mean, you can charge $1 extra to make it available on both platforms, as opposed to making, so you can do like $1.99 on each platform.
Right.
You can merge them and charge $2.99.
Exactly.
Right, and then you get better coverage, better install coverage across devices.
Especially with universal apps and Unity, it kind of makes it easier than ever, because largely you can have one build process spits out files for both platforms, and you're good to go.
Yeah, and that's the universal apps, which we'll cover here in a few minutes. So let's talk about the method of exporting from Unity to Windows.
Okay.
Here's this big chart of prerequisites. We'll try to demystify this the best we can.
Okay. Seems complicated at first, but I'm confident we'll break it down.
Yeah, we'll break it down. So Windows Store, we covered that. We also have a Windows Phone 8 platform and store. So we highly recommend Unity 4.5 or higher for these.
Yes.
Tons of great bug fixes, performance improvements, new features included in those versions. To build, so to run the SDK, you've got to have Windows 8 or greater.
Okay.
For both Windows Store and Windows Phone 8.
If somebody doesn't have Windows 8, what is a great way to actually get their hands on it?
Let's see, what do we have? We've got BizSpark.
Yes.
We've got DreamSpark.
If you're a student, DreamSpark is essentially our school equivalent.
We have the new Unity developer offer.
Yes, for both level 1 and level 2 developers.
Yep, and we can go over that later, I believe. So you do need that. You also need Visual Studio 2012 or greater.
Which again is included in each of those offers as well. So we'll often handle the the operating system cost for you, and in most cases handle Visual Studio licensing for you.
And as with anything, we always recommend the latest version of anything.
Absolutely.
So you can get your hands on it, right? It does require the SDKs for each platform,
Yep.
which are included in the installation with Visual Studio. So not a lot of extra work there.
Yeah.
Now, Universal Apps is a new concept that was introduced earlier this year,
Okay.
in the spring. Now, Unity 4.5.3 is the version that supports exporting to Universal Apps, and
Correct.
that's live now. You can go download that on the Unity website. That does require Windows 8.1 and Visual Studio 2013 Update 2 or greater. I
Yes.
think we're on Update 3 now. And then the SDKs, again, get installed with Visual Studio.
Right.
So, and we'll cover what universal apps are in just a few minutes. I don't want to delve into that just yet. But you also need a developer account to be able to deploy these and test them on devices, along with also publishing to the stores.
And again, those fees can often be waived through DreamSpark or BizSpark memberships. And I have to point out, it's quite a bit cheaper than what many competing platforms charge in terms of developer accounts as well.
Yep. And, if you look down at the bottom right-hand side of this chart, we've got register for $19 for an individual, $99 for a company. That does cover both stores.
Yeah.
Again, BizSpark, I think some versions of DreamSpark Premium offer, the Unity offer. We have several ways of, again, getting that to you for free.
Right, waiving these fees.
And that's just engaging an evangelist or applying to one of these offers that we have online.
Absolutely. And I thought we were doing right by developers a couple of years ago when we had Xbox Live Indie Games, and it was $100 per year per platform. Now we're dropping it down to $20. It's just getting better and better over time for developers.
Yep. So let's do a demo. We're going to export the great game that Adam and Matt made.
Okay.
Zombie Pumpkin Slayer, or whatever
I like it.
it's called, right?
Yeah.
We're going to export that to a Windows Phone 8 Visual Studio project so we can see what that looks like.
And we just happen to have a phone here to test it as well.
We do.
Yeah. So what is your weapon of choice? Which phone are you using at the moment?
I have a Nokia 1520.
Good choice indeed.
That's my personal phone. It's great. I love it.
I'm using the same thing as well.
I don't think I could go back to a smaller screen now that I'm on that.
Right? People ask, how do you use such a large phone? And my response always is, well, I don't typically use my phone for conversations, right? It's email or OneNote and ways of staying organized. So when 90% of my time goes towards staring at a screen, I need to be as large as possible.
So I'm going to just get this project open here on the desktop.
Okay, so we're opening up Unity at this point. Okay, anxious to see how this turns out, because I know I have been working on it. I saw with them drawing new art earlier today.
Yep.
Not gonna lie, I get kind of jealous when I see someone with such talent when it comes to drawing art. We're both programmers here, so our art skills tend to be lacking at times.
I'm terrible. I bought a Surface Pro 3 so I could do some drawing.
Yeah.
And it's not gone well.
I'm sure it's better than anything I could come up with at this point.
I'm pretty sure my 3.5-year-old son can draw better than I can.
Hey, there's no shame. There's no shame. Yeah. We've all got to start somewhere, so this is a perfect opportunity.
I go to school and see what he's been working on, and he's just putting me to shame.
Granted, he has tools available to him today that we didn't have as children, so.
Okay.
Okay, so walk us through this project.
We have Zombie Pumpkin Slayers built by Adam and Matt. Okay. I'm going to open build settings real quick here. And I don't see that I have any scenes actually in the builds. That's very important when you're exporting a Unity project.
Right.
So kind of an easy way to do that is I'm going to open the scene folder, and I don't see scenes at all.
Perhaps they removed them on you. Or they just kept it in the base assets folder.
Maybe I have a bad export of a project here. Bear with me.
I will find out in just a moment. So like Adam mentioned earlier, when you're, or I'd asked during the first session, as we're starting to build our scenes, we may have 13 scenes in our entire folder, but we're not necessarily using all of them at once. Adam, for example, brought up that he has 13 scenes, but he's only actually using 3 at any given point for his project. The rest are often just used for testing here and there, going for best practices, maybe seeing different kinds of performance.
Well, you know what? We'll use a different project.
Perfect.
We'll move on from that. We'll use, hopefully this is what Carl was using earlier.
Okay.
Looks like it.
All right, his little auto runner that he had going on before.
Okay. Let's look up.
Kind of looked like some Don Bluth art.
We've got
there
a
we
scene.
go.
Yeah, here we go. Okay.
Again, the art kind of putting us to shame.
So build settings, we have scenes.
Beautiful.
In our build. That's great.
We have a start screen and the first level.
All right. So the first demo I'm going to do is actually exporting to Windows Phone 8, and the reason you would want to target this separately, and we'll get into Windows Store later.
Okay.
We are updating our install base to Windows Phone 8.1.
Yes.
But it is taking a little bit of time, and it probably won't be completed until later this year.
Things don't happen overnight.
So if you're doing a Windows game or Windows Phone game and you plan on publishing it maybe in the next couple of months, I would go ahead and separately target Windows Phone 8 as opposed to a universal app.
Okay.
And that way you maximize the available install base of Windows Phone, right? You don't want to
You kind of limit your
market
potential
size,
at
right.
that point, yeah.
So I'm going to switch platforms to Windows Phone 8.
Gives us a moment to build. It's going to compile our entire project, put the scripts together, the images.
And you'll notice here we have a development build checkbox that we can check. And that's there in case I want to be able to connect the profiler.
Okay.
And I can profile on a Windows Phone device.
Okay. You kind of test performance, do some debugging, and whatever else.
Yep. So I'm going to skip that. I'm just going to I'm going to create a new folder.
Always wise to stay organized and have a build
Default
folder
builds.
for separate platforms.
And then I'm going to create one for WP8. Okay. I'm going to let it do its thing.
Builds surprisingly very quickly. I like it. All right, here we go in just a moment. Post-processing player, so it's putting together our entire scene, and the player is actually what is wrapped within the Windows Phone or Windows 8 application. So the player is all of Unity that's handling our inputs, the draw loop, the update loop, things of that nature.
Right. And we're done. You see we have this WP8 folder, and inside this folder we actually have our Visual Studio solution from our game that we just exported from Unity.
Okay.
So I'm going to open this up just to get a quick look at it, to kind of see what's
kind of going on under the hood over there?
Yeah, exactly. And what Unity exports, it is a full buildable Visual Studio solution. It's got all the right build targets and everything for Windows Phone.
Okay.
For Windows Phone, what it does not export are the icons and stuff for the tiles.
Right.
That is something you actually have to set up in Visual Studio.
Okay, not a problem.
Right. And you would do that in...
So it looks like a very basic
your
Windows
manifest
Phone
file.
application at this point.
Yep. And so it exports a XAML C# based Windows Phone project.
Okay.
For those of you familiar with the platform changes, this would be called a Phone Silverlight project.
Yes.
Windows Phone Silverlight project.
So that
Built
file you just
Silverlight
opened
model.
up right there, what was that? That was app manifest?
This is I've got mainpage.xaml open here.
Okay.
Just to kind of show you what's going on. We do have a XAML page that wraps the Unity player. Okay, and then it has this drawing surface background grid, which is actually the surface that the Unity game is going to be rendered on.
Okay.
So that's our render target, essentially. Okay, and then you can come into the app manifest. This is where you would declare or set up your app icons, declare the resolutions that you plan on supporting.
Right. Perhaps the orientation.
Right.
What if you only want it to play landscape or vertical? This is where you'd set those settings.
Yep, and also when you're getting ready to upload to the store and publish, you'd actually come in here and set up these values here for packaging once you get them from the developer portal. Okay, so I'm going to put that aside for a second. I'm going to go back to Unity.
Okay.
And let's look at build settings for Windows Store. This is the next one.
Looks slightly different. You have a few more options at this point.
I'm just going to advance my slide. Okay. And I'm going to go back to Unity. Go back to build settings. Windows Store. This is a little bit more complex. And we'll go through this real quick. So we have a type selected here of XAML C# solution. If you feel more comfortable in C++ and native,
Yes.
then you can certainly export a C++ solution. I prefer C#. I've done way too much C++ development in my lifetime.
And I'm also using Prime 31 Azure plugin, and I know that requires C#
Right.
XAML as well. So often you have to look at some of the plugin requirements because they may have specific features like that.
Yep, and you can also do very easy interop code between Unity and C#
Yes.
on the platform using #ifdef
Yep.
pre-compiler commands. So it's pretty handy for that. I can select the SDK version that I want to build against. You'll notice we've got 4 of them now. We have Windows 8 SDK. We've got a Windows 8.1 SDK.
Okay.
We've got a Phone 8.1 SDK. And then